Understanding the psychology of real estate will help you make smarter decisions. Here to discuss with me today, Benny Landman's here. How you doing, Benny?
Good.
Good to see you.
And yourself, how are you?
Terrific. I think a lot of people know, or at least have heard, that real estate is emotional, or people will make emotional decisions. If you've ever bought a home, you probably know when you walked in to that home, you knew it was the one very quickly. Like, there are some super analytical people who needed to walk through every room before they could finally click. But for a lot of people, let's call it 90-some%, you walk in, you see a few things, you see the feel, and you go, this feels like home. Now I'm what we would call emotionally attached. But you say, what you were telling me, Benny, is that it's the psychology. You have to go a little bit deeper into understanding what it is that you're desiring, and that'll help you make better decisions, right?
Exactly. Everybody will give you the surface of the tip of the iceberg. I want a house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I want a room for a big backyard, etc. And I want an ocean view. And then you go out and try to find something. I think what you should do is keep asking, as an agent who's working for your buyer at this point, to ask them what else is involved, what else do you like, what else do you need, and just try to set up a conversation where they tell you, geez, I would really love a big backyard. Well, why? Well, I want to put a pool in. Well, did you grow up with a pool? Well, I did. And you start going down that lane, or that direction. That's I think is most important. And like, as you said, you'll try and get something that all of a sudden hits those buttons, that emotional situation. And as soon as they walk in, boom, they know it's it.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because right here on this stage, it was a different color carpet those days, and we had a different setup in here. But I had a psychology professor from USD in here. And he was saying that one of the things that the first thing you'll go to if you go to counseling or you're asking someone about something is they'll start asking about your childhood, because as adults, a lot of people try to repeat the things that they enjoyed as a child. And they will try to reconnect with that childhood energy. That's their safe place. It's a happy place for them. So what you're saying there makes perfect sense. Hey, I grew up with a pool, so I made all these memories. I want my kids to experience that. I want to see that happening now from this perspective. I want to go back to that place. And so it's smart to ask that question. It's smart to dig deeper, because also as a buyer, it would be nice to know what is pulling me, for 2 reasons. So that I can make sure that, okay, I'm putting the proper value on it, and also is there other things that might also touch that same button for me,
right,
that I could look for in a home.
That emotional thing. When you walk through the door at the end of a work day, you want to feel that emotion. You want to feel, hey, I'm home, capital H. And you want the family to feel exactly the same thing. One of the first houses I bought when I lived in Toronto had a beautiful gate, wooden gate with a circle, and it was with vines on it. It was absolutely gorgeous. I fell in love with it. I liked the house, but I fell in love with the gate. I know it sounds crazy and stupid. Moved in, fell in love with the house. In the middle of the winter, the gate falls down. There's no more vines. It's gone. But what it did is it got me into the house, and it got me really emotionally involved in it, to the point where I should have sold it when I had a chance, and I didn't, but lost money later on, and lost a little bit of money. But that was the emotional part of it. You're falling in love with it.
I remember that. I think if anyone who's bought a house out there, you probably know, like, when you fell in love. I remember when I walked in the first house that I bought, and I fell in love with it. And it was funny because my agents had been showing me houses for a year and a half, and I hadn't liked anything. And so they took me to this one. I fell in love with it, and I said, all right, how much is it? And they're like, okay, now we're going to talk. We know you can afford it. So I ended up buying probably, I don't know, $20,000 above where I wanted to. And this is in Missouri, so price point's much lower. It's like a 10% increase. But this also can affect sellers, right?
Correct.
Because now you're on the other side of that coin. You have to part with something.
You had to part with something. It becomes even more emotional for that seller to give up that house that they've been in for 30 years, where they've raised their kids, where they've had all these events and these happy moments in life, or tragic, whatever. And what do I do? And it's kind of, that's the other side of the coin. It's kind of interesting. So they'll say to me, I want to get this house ready for the new buyer, and I'm going to change the carpet and change this and change that. And my response in most of the cases is don't change anything. You're going to put in blue cabinets, they're going to want yellow. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a brand new renovated house just sell and the cabinets are outside waiting for the garbage guy to pick them up or give it to charity. The new person wants to put their stamp on it, their personality on it. And I know you're feeling upset about, hey, I have dirty walls or dirty this or dirty, something that's not up to date, but it's for the next guy to do. That's the psychology for the seller.
And I understand that. I mean, I'll never forget my childhood home that I grew up in. The day that we were leaving, it was empty, and it was about time to walk out for the first time.
Right.
And my sister, who's 8 years older than me, so she's probably 15 or 16 at the time, she said, can you believe if we come back into this house tomorrow, we could get arrested? And we're not allowed to come back in this house anymore. And that stuck with me. And now when I think about real estate, and because it's my passion, it's what I'm involved in, it's what I do, I think about sellers who have those same kinds of thoughts. Like, this is our home. This is our nest. Yeah. We brought our kids up here. They went to school here. They had birthdays here. They skinned their knee here. They took naps right there on that couch. And so it becomes this highly valuable emotional piece of real estate for you. It's very difficult for sellers to let go sometimes.
Correct.
And I totally understand that now, and to think that this isn't going to be ours anymore. And that's why it seems to me a lot of times sellers need to find the next house before they can truly detach from the old one.
Correct.
And that's a tough order of operations from a transactional standpoint.
Yeah.
But psychologically, since that's our subject, it seems like that's the catalyst a lot of times for the seller to be able to go, you know what, I think I can let go of my grip that I have on this one because I now have this one over here, and I've gotten that connection over here now, and this looks like home to me now.
It just popped into my mind. We were talking about. I agree with you 100%. A couple, one daughter who was, hadn't gone and left, and they actually built the house themselves. The husband actually did some of the work during construction, and I remember sitting there with the offer. They're ready to sign it, and the wife starts crying. And this is so emotional that she's giving up this piece, basically a piece of her existence, a mental existence, a life. And I said to her, I said, you don't have to sell this if you don't want. You're visibly upset. We don't have to do this. She went through the crying. She said, thank you, but we have to move on. And that was then, this was years ago. I saw so much raw emotion in this lady, so upset that I had to say something. I said, you really don't have to do this if you don't want to. And they said, no, it's time. But she needed that actual, hey, this is for real now. I'm signing this piece of paper and it's for real.
Yep.
It's a really an emotional situation. When you're doing commercial, which I do also, it's a different story. We don't care what color the door is, what color
numbers,
carpet
right?
is.
Spreadsheets.
Tell me what my cap rate is, and thank you very much. Yes, no, where do I sign?
Very, very different world.
Very different, completely different world. And both are refreshing. I mean, if you do commercial too long, you get jaded.
Yeah.
If you do residential, you get sort of very emotional. You need a little bit of both going on.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's a great topic, and I think it's something that people can learn from too, from this concept of really understanding what's the driving force, what is the motivation behind the desires that you have, the wants that you have with the new home. If you can kind of figure out where that's coming from, you can make better, wiser decisions about what you're going to end up buying. And when you're selling, just understanding that it is going to be difficult and you're going to need something to help you let go. And maybe that might be finding the next home or finding the next neighborhood to be excited about. Maybe that'll help you there. Benny, thank you so much for coming in today, man. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
It was great to have you. Hey, share this with your friends. Let's help make them smarter than everyone else when it comes to the psychology of buying and selling real estate in San Diego.